The arrival of the aliens. It was a calm evening when the sky suddenly darkened. People were going about their usual routines, children playing in the streets, families having dinner, and workers heading home after a long day. No one expected what was coming. At first, it was just a strange flicker in the sky, something no one had ever seen before. A light, bright and unusual, appeared over the horizon. It grew bigger and bigger until it filled the sky. Then, with a loud boom, the massive spaceship landed. It was like nothing anyone had ever imagined. Shiny, metallic, and shaped like a giant disk. People stood frozen, staring at the sky. What were they seeing? Was this the end of the world? The news stations went wild. Helicopters zoomed in from every direction, trying to get a closer look. People gathered in crowds, their eyes fixed on the ship. They had no idea who or what was inside. The doors of the ship slowly opened. Out of the shadows, two figures emerged. They were tall and slender, with glowing eyes and a presence that seemed almost too powerful for humans to comprehend. These were no ordinary visitors. These were the aliens, and they had arrived with a purpose. One of the aliens raised their hand, and a strange device floated above them, projecting their voices across the entire planet. Their speech was not in any human language, but it was translated instantly through technology. "We are the Krillin twins," the voice echoed. "We come from the far reaches of the galaxy. We have traveled countless light years to find the most interesting species in the universe, and now we have found you." The crowd watched in stunned silence. They could feel the weight of the words, even though they didn't fully understand them. The Krillin twins were not here to make friends. Their tone was cold, almost mocking. "You humans," the voice continued, "are weak. Your planet is primitive, and your kind is pathetic. We have seen countless worlds, and yours is nothing more than a speck in the vastness of space. We expected more from you. You've had enough time to grow, to learn, but instead, you're stuck, fighting each other over small, meaningless things." The world's leaders gathered in an emergency meeting, trying to make sense of the situation. Were these aliens really here to destroy Earth, or were they here to test humanity? The fear of the unknown gripped every person, and panic spread quickly. The Krillin twins didn't seem concerned at all. They turned their gaze to the humans below, their faces filled with judgment. "We challenge you, Earthlings," they said. "Prove to us that you are worth anything. Show us your strength, your intelligence. You have one chance. Fail, and you will be forgotten, like the countless civilizations before you." The air was thick with tension. How could humanity respond to such an insult? People whispered in fear. What could they possibly do against beings from another world? Their technology was far beyond anything Earth had seen. But then, something unexpected happened. In the midst of the crowd, a man stepped forward. His name was Jack. He wasn't a soldier, nor a scientist or even a leader. He was an ordinary man, someone who lived a quiet life. But in that moment, as the world watched in fear, he found the courage to speak up. Jack wasn't afraid. He knew this wasn't just about him. It was about all of humanity. He stood tall, despite the odds. The eyes of the world were on him. The Krillin twins saw him and laughed. "And who is this?" one of them asked. "Do you think you can challenge us, weak human?" The crowd fell silent. They were just as confused as the aliens. What was Jack doing? Why had he stepped forward? He was just one man. But Jack didn't back down. He looked up at the aliens with defiance in his eyes. "I may be one man," Jack said calmly, "but I represent all of humanity. And we are not weak. We will not let you mock us." The alien twins exchanged a look of surprise. They had expected the humans to beg for mercy or fall to their knees in fear. But Jack's response was different. It was a challenge. "Very well," the Krillin twins said, their voices cold. "You may have your chance, but remember, this is your only chance. Fail, and you will be crushed under the weight of your own weakness." Jack nodded, his heart pounding, but his resolve was stronger than ever. This wasn't just about saving Earth. It was about showing the aliens that humanity had strength, courage, and the will to fight. He wasn't sure how, but he knew that he had to prove them wrong. As the alien twins hovered above the crowd, their mocking laughter echoed in the air. But Jack didn't flinch. He was ready. And with that, the world held its breath, waiting for the next move. Would this ordinary man be able to rise up against the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced? Or would the Krillin twins prove their point and crush Earth beneath their feet? The suspense grew. Jack had stepped into the unknown, and there was no turning back. The man who steps forward. As the world stared at the Krillin twins, their glowing eyes scanning the crowd, something incredible happened. The tension in the air was almost unbearable, but in the midst of it, one man dared to take a stand. Jack was an ordinary person, an accountant, a father, a husband. He had no special training or skills. He wasn't a soldier or a politician. He was just like the millions of others around him, living a quiet life, minding his own business. Yet in that moment, when the whole world seemed to hold its breath, Jack made a decision that would change everything. The mocking words of the aliens still echoed in the ears of everyone who heard them. The Krillin twins had demanded a challenge, a test of humanity's worth. They had humiliated the world, belittling the very essence of human existence. Earth had been insulted, and its people had been pushed to the brink. But Jack didn't feel fear. He felt something much stronger, a sense of responsibility, a deep-rooted need to defend humanity's honor. He looked around, seeing the fear in the eyes of those around him. People whispered, glancing at each other, unsure of what to do. Leaders and military officials stood frozen, waiting for someone, anyone, to make a move. And that's when Jack stepped forward. His decision wasn't one born of arrogance or pride. It wasn't a desperate act of a person trying to save the world. It was a quiet, calm resolve that seemed almost out of place in the face of such overwhelming power. But Jack knew that he couldn't stand by and watch. He couldn't let these alien invaders mock humanity without even trying to show them that there was something more beneath the surface of human existence. He walked slowly toward the front of the crowd. His movements were steady, almost deliberate. The Krillin twins, watching from above, turned their gaze toward him, their expressions filled with amusement. They had expected humanity to crumble in fear, but this human, this ordinary man, was different. "Who is this?" One of the Krillin twins sneered, their voice carrying an edge of disbelief. "Another weakling who believes they can change anything." The crowd around Jack grew silent. Every person watching, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, held their breath. What could one man possibly do? How could he stand up to beings who were light years ahead in technology and power? The odds seemed impossible, but Jack didn't hesitate. "I am Jack," he said, his voice steady, "and I represent every person here, every person on this planet. We are not weak. We are not what you think." The Krillin twins laughed. "You," one of them mocked. "You think you can change anything? You, a single human, will challenge us? You are nothing." The alien twins' laughter echoed in the air, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to feel the weight of their words. Jack, however, didn't flinch. His eyes never left the alien twins, his gaze unwavering. The world watched, unsure of what to expect. Was Jack mad? Was he naive? How could he possibly hope to stand against these powerful beings? But as Jack stood there, facing the aliens, something shifted. The energy in the air was changing. The Krillin twins grew silent. They hadn't expected this reaction. They were used to seeing fear, panic, or begging. But Jack wasn't afraid. He was confident, calm, and resolute. There was something about him, something that stood in stark contrast to the fear gripping the rest of humanity. His belief in humanity, in the human spirit, was unshakable. It wasn't just about fighting back. It was about showing the Krillin twins that humans weren't just weak creatures. They were capable of more. "Listen," Jack continued, his voice stronger now. "You think we're weak because we don't have your technology or your power, but you've underestimated us. We may not have your weapons, your ships, your advanced technology, but we have something that's stronger. We have willpower, we have determination, and above all, we have the courage to fight." For the first time, the alien twins hesitated. Their expressions shifted from mocking amusement to something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest trace of surprise. They hadn't expected this from humans. They had expected Earth's inhabitants to be like the countless other weak civilizations they had encountered in their travels. But Jack's words were different. They were bold. They were strong. They were human. The silence that followed was deafening. The Krillin twins exchanged a quick glance, then focused their attention back on Jack. "You dare challenge us?" one of them asked, their voice no longer laced with mockery, but with genuine intrigue. Jack nodded. "Yes, I do. And not just for me, but for all of humanity. We may not have the power you do, but we have something you can't take away. Our hearts, our spirit, and our desire to survive. We may be small, but we are fierce, and we will prove it." The Krillin twins paused. The world waited, holding its breath. Could Jack really be serious? Could a single human stand up to these invaders, to these beings from the stars? For a moment, the aliens said nothing. They simply stared down at Jack, considering his words. They had traveled across the universe, encountering hundreds of species. But never before had they met a race that would boldly challenge them in this way. The Krillin twins were accustomed to intimidation, to conquering worlds without resistance. But this human, this Jack, had done something they hadn't expected. Finally, the Krillin twins spoke, their voices now measured and deliberate. "You wish to test humanity's strength?" one of them asked. "Very well. We will give you a chance. But remember this, failure means extinction." Jack's heart raced, but his determination didn't falter. He wasn't just doing this for himself. He was doing this for every person on Earth. He was doing this to show the aliens that humanity had more to offer than they could ever imagine. And with that, the challenge was set. The world watched as Jack, an ordinary man, prepared to take on the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. Would he succeed? Or would the Krillin twins prove that humanity was indeed weak? The next few moments would decide the fate of Earth. The first challenge. The world was on edge, its collective breath held as the Krillin twins, hovering above Earth, prepared to deliver the first challenge. The weight of the moment hung thick in the air. Every eye was on Jack. He was no longer just an ordinary man. In the eyes of humanity, he had become something more. He was the symbol of Earth's fight for survival. The Krillin twins regarded Jack with an almost amused curiosity. They had expected a different kind of response from humanity. They had expected fear, submission, or even the false promises of peace from leaders trying to negotiate their way out of this situation. But Jack had not done that. He had dared to challenge them. And now, the twins were intrigued. They floated down slowly, the hum of their ship growing louder as they came closer. Their sharp eyes locked onto Jack's, sizing him up. The alien twins were powerful beyond comprehension, their technology and intelligence far superior to anything Earth had ever seen. Their ships could bend the laws of physics, their minds could calculate the impossible, and their knowledge spanned galaxies. To them, humanity was a mere curiosity, an insignificant species on a small primitive planet. And yet here was this man, this simple human, standing before them with unwavering confidence. "We'll give you a chance," one of the Krillin twins said, its voice echoing with a cold, metallic tone. "A test to prove your worth. But do not mistake this for mercy. If you fail, humanity will be crushed beneath our feet. There is no turning back." Jack didn't flinch. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained clear. He had no idea what kind of challenge awaited him. But he knew one thing for sure. It wasn't just about winning. It was about showing the Krillin twins and the rest of humanity that they were not to be underestimated. The strength of Earth wasn't in its technology, but in its people, in their hearts, in their resilience. The alien twin that had spoken now raised a slender, glowing hand. A series of holographic images appeared before them, floating in midair, projected from the alien device. "Your challenge is simple," the alien continued. "You will face us in a test of intellect and strength. We will give you a task. Succeed, and we will consider your species worthy of survival. Fail, and you will perish." The task was revealed. It wasn't a physical fight, nor was it a battle of technology. The Krillin twins had something more complex in mind. A test of strategy, intelligence, and wit. They showed Jack a series of moving patterns, intricate designs that shifted and changed in the blink of an eye. The puzzle was alien in nature, something that no human mind had ever encountered before. It was a labyrinth of shapes and codes, constantly shifting, with no clear solution. A seemingly impossible puzzle, the kind that could break even the most brilliant minds. Jack stared at the puzzle, feeling his pulse quicken. He didn't understand it, not at first. The symbols were unfamiliar, the patterns chaotic. The twins were watching him, their eyes glowing as they waited for him to make the first move. The pressure was immense, but Jack refused to let it consume him. He took a deep breath. He wasn't a genius. He didn't have advanced knowledge of alien technology. But he had one thing the Krillin twins didn't seem to understand: human ingenuity. Humans had spent centuries overcoming obstacles, solving problems, and thinking outside the box. When things seemed impossible, humans found a way to push through. Jack began studying the puzzle carefully, his mind racing. He noticed something small, almost unnoticeable at first, a pattern within the chaos. It was subtle, but it was there. The pieces of the puzzle, though constantly shifting, followed a set rhythm. Jack's years of simple problem-solving in his everyday life had taught him how to see the bigger picture, even when it was hidden beneath layers of confusion. As Jack focused, the world around him seemed to fade away. He wasn't just looking at a puzzle. He was looking at a challenge that represented the very survival of his species. He had no idea what the next move would be, but he knew that he had to keep going, one step at a time. The clock was ticking, but Jack's determination was unwavering. The Krillin twins watched, their expressions unreadable. They had expected Jack to fail quickly. After all, this wasn't just a puzzle. It was an alien challenge, something far beyond human comprehension. But Jack wasn't giving up. He was still at it, moving from one part of the puzzle to the next, slowly unraveling its mysteries. Minutes turned to hours. The puzzle continued to change, and Jack's frustration mounted. He could feel his mind beginning to tire, his body begging for rest. But there was no time for rest. There was only the puzzle. There was only humanity's future. Jack's hands trembled slightly, but he didn't stop. He adjusted his approach, rethinking his strategies, considering new angles. Every time the puzzle shifted, he adapted. And then, with a sudden burst of clarity, he saw it. He saw the solution. It was hidden in plain sight all along. A series of simple, logical steps that had been masked by the complexity of the design. He quickly connected the dots, aligning the symbols, and click. The puzzle completed itself with a soft sound, and the images vanished. The challenge was done. Jack's heart raced as he stood, waiting for the Krillin twins' response. Could he have really done it? Had he solved an alien puzzle that no human mind was ever meant to understand? The Krillin twins exchanged glances. The silence was thick with disbelief. It wasn't possible. No human should have been able to solve this puzzle, especially not one like Jack, a simple man from Earth. But there it was. The puzzle had been solved. You did it," one of the Krillin twins said, its voice laced with surprise. "Impossible." Jack stood tall, his chest rising and falling with each breath. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The puzzle had been solved. Humanity had been tested, and it had passed. But the challenge was far from over. This victory was just the beginning. The Krillin twins might have been stunned, but they wouldn't give up so easily. There was more to come. And Jack knew that the next challenge would be even harder. The fate of the entire world rested on his shoulders. As the alien twins floated in silence, Jack's eyes narrowed with determination. He had proven humanity's worth in their eyes, but the real battle had just begun. The unexpected turn. The Krillin twins hovered above the earth, their expressions no longer filled with the smug superiority they had first shown. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a feeling of surprise in the air. Jack had done the impossible. He had solved the alien puzzle. The world watched in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Humanity had won the first round, but the victory felt hollow. There was a sense that this was just the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous. The Krillin twins, though stunned, didn't acknowledge their defeat. Instead, they exchanged a brief look, their glowing eyes flickering with something deeper, perhaps even a hint of admiration. Yet that fleeting moment of respect quickly dissolved into cold calculation. "Impressive," one of them said, the words clipped and sharp. "But this is just a small victory. The next challenge will push you beyond what you can imagine. You may have solved a simple puzzle, but now we will test something much deeper. Your survival instinct." The crowd below Jack tensed. The challenge had begun with a puzzle, something that seemed nearly impossible but ultimately solvable. But now, there was a darker edge to the Krillin twins' words. Whatever came next, Jack knew, would be something far more dangerous. One of the Krillin twins raised a hand, and a swirling vortex of light and energy appeared above them. It was not just a simple light show. It was a portal, a tear in the very fabric of space and time. The ground trembled slightly, and a low hum filled the air, as though the planet itself was holding its breath. "This," the alien voice continued, "is the real test. This is where your true nature will be revealed. You will face a trial of strength, of survival. You will be thrown into the very depths of your own instincts. Only those who can adapt will live. The rest will perish." With a swift motion, the Krillin twins gestured toward the portal. It expanded, its shimmering edges glowing with an unnatural energy. Jack's eyes locked onto it, his body instinctively tensing. The light from the portal began to distort the landscape around him. The world, for a brief moment, seemed to lose its shape, the air growing thick with a strange alien energy. And then, in an instant, the portal released a powerful burst, and Jack was pulled toward it with overwhelming force. The crowd below gasped, but there was nothing they could do to stop it. The world's fate now rested in Jack's hands. The portal closed behind him as he was thrown into a new reality, a strange, unfamiliar world. His body hit the ground hard, the impact sending a shockwave through him. He groaned, slowly pushing himself up from the strange, rocky terrain. The air was thick with the scent of alien plants, and the sky above him shimmered in hues of purple and red, colors that didn't belong to Earth. Jack glanced around, disoriented. This was no place he recognized. It felt like another world entirely, a place so different from Earth that even the very laws of nature seemed to be altered. The ground beneath his feet pulsed with a strange energy, and the wind carried the scent of something both sweet and foul at once. The atmosphere was heavy, as though the air itself was thick with danger. His heart pounded in his chest. What was happening? Where was he? He didn't know what the Krillin twins had planned, but it was clear that this was a test, one that would push him to his limits. A low growl echoed from the distance. Jack's eyes snapped to the source of the sound, his body instinctively tensing. In the distance, he saw shapes moving. Large shapes. Creatures. Alien beasts. They were coming for him. The first one appeared out of the shadows, a creature unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It was enormous, with spiked skin and glowing eyes. Its mouth was filled with rows of jagged teeth, and its claws scraped the ground as it moved toward him. The creature's steps were slow but purposeful, as though it was savoring the moment before the kill. Without thinking, Jack sprang into action. He ran, his feet pounding against the alien ground. The creature followed, its growls growing louder as it closed the distance. Jack's mind raced. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained to fight beasts like this, but he had one thing the creature didn't: human ingenuity. As the creature lunged at him, Jack dove to the side, narrowly avoiding its snapping jaws. The ground trembled with the impact of the creature's claws as they struck where Jack had been moments before. His body screamed in pain from the effort, but Jack didn't stop. He couldn't. His survival depended on his ability to think quickly, to adapt. He scrambled to his feet, searching for anything that could help him. His eyes landed on a large, jagged rock nearby. Without hesitation, Jack grabbed it, swinging it at the creature as it charged again. The rock struck the creature's side, and it let out a deafening roar of pain. But it wasn't enough to stop it. The creature swiped at him with its massive claws, grazing Jack's shoulder and sending him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs. Blood dripped from the wound on his shoulder, but Jack pushed through the pain. He couldn't afford to be weak. He had to find a way to survive. As the creature moved toward him again, Jack's eyes darted around, looking for any advantage. That's when he saw it, an outcrop of sharp, jagged rocks, like a natural trap. He had an idea. He just needed the creature to follow him. Summoning every ounce of strength, Jack sprinted toward the rocks, with the creature hot on his heels. The sound of its claws scraping against the ground filled his ears as he ducked and weaved, using his agility to stay one step ahead. When he reached the outcrop, he turned sharply, leading the creature into a narrow path between two large rocks. The creature followed blindly, too focused on its prey to notice the trap. Jack quickly shoved a large boulder into the narrow path, blocking the creature's way. It growled and roared, thrashing against the rocks, but it was stuck. Jack had outsmarted it. His chest heaved with exhaustion, his body covered in sweat and blood. But he had done it. He had survived. For now. But this was only the beginning. The Krillin twins' challenge wasn't over. There were more creatures, more dangers ahead, and the world's fate still hung in the balance. Jack's heart raced as he realized just how much more he would need to endure to prove humanity's worth. He looked up at the sky, knowing that his fight was far from finished. The Krillin twins were watching, and they wouldn't make it easy for him. But Jack was ready. He had proven he could survive the first test, and he would do whatever it took to keep proving humanity's strength. The moment of triumph. The air in the alien world was thick with tension as Jack stood amidst the ruins of his survival. His body ached, his shoulder bleeding, his mind weary, but there was no time to rest. The Krillin twins had set the stage for humanity's ultimate trial, and Jack had passed the first test, a survival instinct that not even the alien creatures could break. But Jack knew this was only one battle in a war for his survival and the future of his planet. The strange landscape around him seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, the sky casting an unnatural glow. The rocky terrain, the alien creatures, and the unknown dangers all around made it feel like Jack was fighting against the very fabric of existence itself. But despite the chaos of the world around him, one thing was clear: humanity's fight was far from over, and he would not back down. Jack's breathing was heavy, but he kept moving, scanning his surroundings. The Krillin twins had only just begun their tests. They had forced him to face impossible odds, and now the real challenge was coming. He knew the next test would be even worse. Suddenly, the familiar yet terrifying voice of the Krillin twins echoed in the air around him. The portal shimmered, and their figures emerged, standing high above, watching Jack with cold, calculating eyes. "You've survived the first trial, human," one of them intoned, its voice devoid of emotion. "But survival is not enough. You must show us that your kind can thrive, that you can adapt, that you are not simply a species doomed to extinction. You are about to face your greatest challenge yet. The word sent a chill down Jack's spine. He had expected more tests, but he had no idea what the Krillin twins had in store for him now. Every step he had taken up to this point had been filled with uncertainty, each victory hard-won. But the next test would be unlike anything he had ever faced. A sudden rumbling shook the ground beneath Jack's feet. The portal behind him flickered once more, and then, without warning, the world around him changed. The sky above turned dark, clouds swirling and twisting into a violent storm. The wind howled, tearing through the alien landscape, shaking the very ground he stood on. Jack barely had time to react before the storm hit. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. The air grew thick with an intense energy that made it difficult to breathe. He gasped for air, his senses overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught of wind and debris. And then, just as quickly as it began, the storm settled. When the dust cleared, Jack found himself standing on the edge of a massive cliff. Far below, an enormous chasm stretched out into the distance, a yawning abyss that seemed to consume the very air around it. Jagged rocks jutted out from the edge of the cliff, and in the distance, Jack saw something moving, something large. The Krillin twins' voices once again echoed around him, cold and commanding. "This is the trial of your spirit, Jack," one of them said. "You will be tested not by physical strength, but by the strength of your will. You must cross the chasm, reach the other side, and return to us. The path ahead is treacherous, and only those who are truly worthy will make it." A shiver ran down Jack's spine as he peered into the depths of the chasm. It seemed impossible. The chasm was wide, far too wide for any human to jump or cross without aid. The rocks that jutted from the edge seemed far apart, each one too unstable to trust. And yet this was the challenge laid before him. There was no choice but to face it. The Krillin twins' laughter echoed in the background, cold and mocking. "You may attempt to use your mind to solve this, human," one of them sneered, "but your instincts will not save you here. Only the strongest survive." Jack looked around, trying to find a way to cross. He couldn't see any clear path ahead. The chasm seemed to stretch endlessly, and the wind carried a faint, eerie noise that sent shivers down his spine. But despite the overwhelming odds, Jack's determination grew stronger. He had survived the creatures, the puzzle, and the previous trials. Now he faced something that could truly break him, but he refused to let fear control him. He took a deep breath and stepped toward the edge of the cliff. The wind whipped around him, threatening to push him off, but Jack held his ground. His eyes scanned the area, looking for a sign. Anything that could help him. His survival instinct, honed through the previous challenges, kicked into overdrive. Then he saw it. A small ledge, barely visible against the dark stone of the cliffside. It wasn't much, but it was enough to hold him for a moment. Jack carefully tested the ledge with his foot. It was solid. It wasn't much, but it would do. He had to trust it. He began climbing, using the ledge to move from one rock to the next. Each step was a gamble, each move a challenge of balance and focus. The wind howled, threatening to throw him off, but Jack didn't falter. He moved with precision, each movement deliberate. As he climbed higher, the world below seemed to disappear. The chasm stretched out beneath him like an endless void. Every time he looked down, his heart skipped a beat, but Jack refused to let fear take control. He couldn't afford to think about falling. He had to focus on the path ahead. Hours passed, though it felt like days. Every muscle in Jack's body screamed for rest, but he kept pushing forward. The rock beneath his hands and feet was sharp, and his skin was scraped raw, but he refused to give in. He couldn't. Not now. He had come too far. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Jack reached the top of the chasm. He collapsed to the ground, his hands shaking with exhaustion. The moment of triumph was fleeting, but it was real. He had done it. He had crossed the chasm, against all odds. The Krillin twins' voices echoed once more. "Impressive, Jack. You have completed the challenge, but do not mistake this for victory. You have merely proven your ability to survive. The true test of humanity's worth lies ahead." Jack, panting and battered, stood up slowly. He had crossed the impossible chasm, but the alien twins were right. This wasn't over. The real test, the final trial, was still to come. Jack's heart raced as he realized what this meant. The Krillin twins had not only tested his body and mind, they had tested his spirit, his will to survive. And he had passed. But what came next? Jack had no idea. All he knew was that he was willing to fight with everything he had left, no matter the cost. He had proven to the Krillin twins, and to the world, that humanity was not weak. It was strong. And nothing could break the human spirit. Not now. Not ever. As Jack stood at the edge of the cliff, staring into the unknown, he knew one thing. The final challenge would define the fate of his world. He was ready, and humanity's fight had only just begun. The final test. The eerie silence of the alien world settled around Jack as he stood at the edge of the cliff, panting from the intense climb he had just completed. His body was battered, his muscles screamed in protest, but his spirit, his resolve, remained as strong as ever. The Krillin twins were still hovering above, their glowing eyes fixed on him with a mixture of intrigue and something far colder, perhaps even a hint of respect. The challenge had been relentless. First, it was the puzzle, a mind-bending task that pushed his intellect beyond its limits. Then, it was survival against terrifying alien creatures in a hostile world. Next came the impossible chasm, a gap so vast and daunting it seemed insurmountable. And Jack had passed each one. But now, as he stood at the top of the cliff, looking into the unknown distance, he knew the Krillin twins had something even worse in store. The air grew heavier, as if the atmosphere itself had become charged with the weight of the coming trial. The alien landscape around him seemed to shimmer with an unnatural glow, the ground pulsing with strange energy. Far in the distance, the storm clouds from earlier began to swirl again, their thunderous rumblings echoing ominously. This was it, the final test. Jack could feel it in his bones. One of the Krillin twins spoke, its voice cold and distant, but with an unmistakable edge of finality. "You have proven that you can survive," it said. "You have shown us your intellect, your strength, and your determination. But now we will test something far more important, your courage. You will face an enemy unlike any you have encountered. You will fight not for your survival, but for something far greater. For your world. For your people." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure what the Krillin twins meant by an enemy unlike any you have encountered, but he knew it was something he wouldn't be able to face alone. His thoughts raced back to Earth. Was this truly the final test? Would this be the moment that determined humanity's fate? He didn't have time to think about that. He only knew one thing. He couldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. As if on cue, the air around Jack grew colder. A low, guttural sound echoed from the distance, breaking the silence. It was not the sound of wind or storm. It was something alive, something powerful. The ground trembled beneath his feet, sending a shiver through his body. Jack squinted into the distance and saw them. Out of the storm clouds and swirling mist, something emerged. It was massive, far larger than anything Jack had seen so far. The creature seemed to rise out of the very earth itself, towering above the landscape with an unnatural grace. Its body was an amalgamation of organic and mechanical parts, a monstrous fusion of flesh and metal that exuded a chilling aura of power. It was a creature unlike anything Jack had ever seen, and it was coming for him. The Krillin twins' voice echoed once more, their tone dark and calculating. "Behold, the true test of your will. This creature, the Dominion Beast, is a manifestation of your deepest fears. It is the ultimate weapon we have created to test humanity. It is fast, relentless, and nearly indestructible. If you can defeat it, then you will have proven that humanity is worthy of survival. If you fail, Earth will be destroyed. The Dominion beast let out a deafening roar, a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very air. The ground cracked beneath its massive feet as it advanced toward Jack, its glowing eyes locked onto him like a predator sizing up its prey. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The creature's mere presence was terrifying, its overwhelming size and power unlike anything he could have imagined. The Krillin twins had tested him physically, mentally, and emotionally, but this was something else entirely. This was a test of his deepest fears, of his very soul. But Jack didn't retreat. He couldn't. His mind flashed back to the countless challenges he had already faced, to the moments when he thought he would break, when he was ready to give up. But he hadn't. He had stood firm, fought through the pain, the exhaustion, and the fear. This creature was no different. It was just another obstacle, one that would test his will to survive. He glanced around quickly, looking for anything that could help him. The landscape was barren, but the rocks and jagged edges from the cliffs still dotted the terrain. He needed to think fast. This wasn't just about strength, it was about strategy, about using everything he had learned from the trials before. The Dominion beast was now only a few yards away, its mechanical limbs moving with terrifying speed. Jack had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his wits and his courage. He had to move. With a burst of energy, Jack sprinted toward the creature, zigzagging to avoid its massive claws and snapping jaws. The beast roared again, swinging its gigantic arm in an attempt to crush him. Jack dove to the side just in time, the ground trembling beneath him as the creature's claws missed by inches. The impact of its strike sent shockwaves through the air, kicking up debris and dust. Jack rolled to his feet and darted toward a large boulder nearby, positioning himself behind it for cover. His mind raced as he took in the beast's movements. The creature was fast, far faster than he had expected, but it also seemed to have a pattern. The way it moved, the way it attacked. Jack's mind clicked into gear, formulating a plan. The Krillin twins had told him that this was a test of courage, but it was also a test of strategy. He couldn't fight this creature head-on. He had to outsmart it, just like he had done with the alien puzzle earlier. Jack waited until the creature moved closer, its massive footfalls shaking the ground. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, Jack darted out from behind the boulder, rushing toward a narrow crevice in the cliffside. He needed to lure the beast in, make it follow him. The Dominion beast roared and charged, its massive body moving with terrifying force. Jack could hear its footsteps growing louder as it approached. He reached the crevice and paused, taking a deep breath. The creature was almost there. In one swift motion, Jack leaped into the crevice, using the narrow opening to his advantage. The beast followed, its massive limbs scraping against the rocks as it tried to squeeze through. But the creature was too large, too clumsy in this confined space. Jack had found its weakness. The beast roared in frustration, thrashing against the rocks, but it couldn't reach him. Jack took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his moment. He had trapped the Dominion beast. As the creature struggled, Jack quickly gathered rocks and debris, using them to block the creature's path even more. The beast let out one final furious roar, but it couldn't move. It was trapped. Jack collapsed to his knees, his body exhausted and covered in cuts and bruises. But he had done it. He had defeated the Dominion beast. He had outsmarted it, using the very environment around him to his advantage. The Krillin twins' voices echoed through the air again, and for the first time, there was a sense of awe in their tone. Impressive, human, one of them said, "You have done the impossible. You have proven your worth. Humanity is not just a species of survivors. You are a species of fighters. You are worthy." The final test had been passed, not by brute force, but by the strength of human ingenuity, courage, and perseverance. Jack had faced his deepest fears and emerged victorious. But even as the dust settled and the creature lay defeated, Jack knew this was not the end. The Krillin twins had tested him, and he had proven that humanity could rise to any challenge. The battle for Earth wasn't over, but humanity's fight for survival had just begun. Jack stood tall, knowing that he had done what no one else thought possible, and that was only the first step. The unexpected end. The dust from the defeated Dominion beast settled into the eerie silence of the alien landscape. Jack stood at the edge of the crevice, his breathing heavy, his body battered and bruised, but unbroken. His heart still raced in his chest, his pulse pounding in his ears. The challenge had seemed impossible, but he had done it. With nothing but his wits and sheer determination, he had outsmarted the creature, trapped it, and overcome yet another seemingly insurmountable test. He was still alive, and so was humanity. But the Krillin twins' presence loomed above him, their unblinking eyes fixed on Jack. They had watched the entire battle unfold, silent and unmoving as Jack faced down the Dominion beast. The twins, once so full of condescension, had seen humanity at its rawest, its most desperate, and its most resourceful. For the first time since they had arrived, there was no mocking tone in their voices. There was only a heavy, almost respectful silence. Jack didn't move, his muscles aching, his thoughts racing. He was exhausted, physically, mentally, and emotionally drained. But the real challenge wasn't over. Not yet. The Krillin twins, after what seemed like an eternity, spoke again. Their voices echoed in the air, cold and commanding. But there was something different now, something almost respectful in their tone. "You have surpassed every challenge we set before you, Jack," one of them said. "You have proven your worth, not through brute strength, but through the strength of your spirit, your will, and your ability to adapt. You have survived the impossible. But your true victory lies not in overcoming us or defeating this beast. It lies in what comes next." Jack's eyes narrowed. There was an edge to the Krillin twins' words, something that made him uneasy. Was this another test? Or was it the moment when they would finally reveal their true intentions? Despite everything he had already faced, Jack felt a deep sense of dread settle in his chest. The Krillin twins continued. "We have traveled across the stars, encountering countless civilizations. Some have shown strength, others intelligence. Some have offered peace, while others fought. But none have shown the resilience, the courage, and the unity that humanity possesses. You are unlike any species we have encountered. You are unpredictable, relentless, and in many ways, more dangerous than we ever imagined. You have earned your place in this universe, Jack. But now, we must leave." Jack blinked, unsure of what he was hearing. "Leave?" he repeated, his voice hoarse. "What do you mean, leave?" The second Krillin twin spoke, its tone colder than before. "The time has come for us to return to our people. The tests we set were not merely for our own amusement. We needed to see if humanity had the will to survive, to rise above the challenges that the universe would inevitably throw your way. You have proven your worth, but we are no longer needed here." Jack's heart sank. They weren't here to conquer. They weren't here to destroy Earth. They were testing humanity. The realization hit him like a wave. The Krillin twins weren't invaders or conquerors. They were observers, sent to measure whether humanity had the qualities they believed would ensure survival in the vastness of the cosmos. But despite their words of approval, something inside Jack stirred. Their tests had been cruel, pushing humanity to its breaking point. The pain, the fear, the suffering, it all felt like part of some grand experiment. The thought of it made Jack feel sick. As the twins floated silently above, Jack felt an overwhelming urge to speak, to voice the questions that had been gnawing at him since the moment they arrived. "If humanity is so great," he began, his voice firm but weary, "why did you push us to the brink? Why did you test us like this? What right do you have to play with our lives like this?" For the first time, there was a flicker of hesitation in the twins' eyes. The atmosphere around them seemed to shift. a quiet tension growing. "We did not mean to cause harm, human," one of them responded, its voice softer, more measured. "The tests were not designed to break you. They were designed to see if you could survive the most difficult trials, if you could rise above your weaknesses and show us your true potential. You passed every test, Jack. Humanity is capable of greatness. You have earned your place in the universe. But the galaxy is vast, and it is filled with dangers you have yet to understand. You are not ready for what lies ahead." Jack frowned, a bitter taste rising in his mouth. He could understand that. The universe was indeed vast, filled with unknown threats, challenges, and mysteries. But the Krillin twins had no right to treat humanity as some kind of test subject. No right to make Earth's fate a mere experiment. "You think this is some kind of game?" Jack asked, his voice now tinged with anger. "You've pushed us to the edge of destruction. People have died. We've been tested beyond our limits. And for what? To see if we're worthy." The Krillin twins said nothing for a long moment. Then, finally, one of them spoke again. "We understand your anger, Jack," it said. "But you must understand this. Survival in the cosmos is not a matter of strength alone. It is a matter of understanding, of unity, of the ability to overcome not only external threats, but also the internal challenges that will rise as your species expands. You have proven you are capable of surviving in the harshest conditions, but the real question is this: can you survive the future you have yet to face?" Jack's heart tightened. He understood what they were saying. The future of humanity was uncertain. There would be conflicts, dangers, and challenges that no one could predict. But Earth had proven something: the power of resilience, the strength to rise above adversity. For a moment, there was quiet. The Krillin twins turned their gaze toward the sky, their expressions unreadable. Then, without another word, they raised their hands, and the portal that had brought them to Earth appeared once more, glowing with an ethereal light. "You have passed the test," one of them said. "But know this: your true journey has only just begun. We leave you now, but the universe will come to you, in ways you cannot yet understand. You must be ready." With that, the Krillin twins stepped back into the portal, disappearing into the unknown, leaving behind nothing but the faint hum of their technology. The sky above cleared, the winds died down, and the land returned to its peaceful stillness. Jack stood alone, his body bruised and battered, but alive. His mind buzzed with the weight of everything that had happened. Humanity had survived, but the real fight was just beginning. The Krillin twins had left, but their words remained. The universe was vast, and humanity's place in it had yet to be determined. He turned to look at Earth, his home. The blue planet that had withstood so much, the place that had birthed him and every person he had ever known. It was fragile, yet resilient. And now, it was up to humanity to prove, not just to the Krillin twins, but to the entire universe, that Earth was more than worthy of its place in the stars. As Jack took a deep breath and watched the sun set on the horizon, he knew that humanity's journey had just begun, and it would be a journey that would shape the future of the cosmos.